So I understand all of you are very busy with your family, with your life, so we cannot appreciate enough that you take the time, the precious Saturday afternoon to be here with us. Please welcome our candidates for the upcoming town election. For the three-year selectman seat, we have two candidates running. Susie Barry. And Joe Paddle. For the one-year selectman seat, we have three candidates running, and one of them are not here today. And with us today is Matthew Cohen, Mark Sandine. For the planning board seat, we have Nancy Cochran-Ronchetti and Bob Peters. So this forum is hosted by CALex. Please welcome CALex co-president Ho Xu.
Thank you all candidates for coming to meet the community, and thank you all for taking the time on weekend to join the meeting on the day that's not so warm. My name is Ho Xu, co-president of CALex. CALex is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. It was formed in October 2017 by a team of volunteers in Lexington. Our mission is to promote participation in public services, education, culture, and other local community affairs, to represent Chinese American interests and to promote civic engagement. The organization has done many things in various areas in the past year, including following accomplishments. One is to join in the coalition of Chinese American communities across statewide cities and towns to oppose Act 3361, a state bill to single out Asian Americans and ask for ancestors' country of origin for the forms created by all state agencies and force agencies. The second is host a party to celebrate 2018 Chinese New Year with close to 300 participants. We held several seminars such as Lexington 2017 Debt Exclusion, School Volunteering, Writing, and Critical Thinking, in order to make it easier for parents to find kid activity resources, especially for families who just moved to Lexington and families who just started school. We collected and compiled a list of over 30 local service providers for after-school classes and extracurricular programs, which include academic study, art, music, and various sport activities. In June last year, we successfully hosted a 5-candidate forum for state representative of our district. So this is the second candidate forum CALex hosts, which is going to be successful too. In late November, we hosted a seminar to have a town meeting member introduction. As a result, we have 6 candidates from the Chinese American community to run for town meeting members. And most recently, CALex initiated a donation campaign to celebrate the 150th birthday of our wonderful Carey Memorial Library. With the love and generosity of our Chinese American community, we received a total of over $4,500 for the library foundation. As a relatively new organization, we have many areas you can participate. You are welcome to join CALex and make your contribution to the organization and the community. We also provide community service opportunities for high school students. Please feel free to contact us. Thank you.
of the, and many of the volunteers for the CALex. So for the agenda today, we have completed the first one, which is meet and greet. So the next segment is going to be the questions and answers. And we have prepared a set of 6 questions, which we believe are the questions that people are most interested in. And we have shared with the candidates ahead of time. And if we have time, then we're going to take some questions from the audience as well. So the way we're going to do this is that I'm going to ask the first question. We're going to start from Matt and then go to the other direction. And for the second question, we're going to go the way back. So this way, it's easy to for the microphone. So let me ask the first question. Could you please introduce yourself and tell us why you are running for the position?
Is it on? Yes. Okay, there we go. Okay. I am a lifelong Lexington resident, and my wife and I have 2 young children, a 9-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son. I love Lexington, and I'm running because I want to secure a bright future for all of us who live here. In large part, what drove me to run is my belief that the Board of Selectmen should reflect better the makeup of our town. I have a unique background in this race, and I can bring unique perspectives to this board. Our board would benefit from having a greater diversity of voices, and I'm the only candidate who can bring a critical perspective that's currently lacking, sort of that of the young working family. My wife and I both have full-time jobs, and if elected, I'd be the only candidate, or only selectman with children in elementary and preschool. I also bring unique qualifications and qualities to this race. I've spent my life learning about, creating, and implementing effective public policy. I earned a bachelor's from Brandeis, a master's from Harvard, and a PhD from Northeastern, all in political science. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'll proudly admit to being a political science and policy nerd. I've worked at all levels of government and been engaged in our community. I've served on the Lexington Human Services Committee and worked in the Lexington Town Manager's office, in Senator Kennedy's Boston office, and spent over 7 years at the Massachusetts State House as a research and budget director. I have extensive experience serving constituents, building consensus, and getting things done, including crafting workable government budgets. I spent the last year knocking on doors and earning the support of many groups and residents. This unique background and knowledge is invaluable in taking on the role of selectman. Neither of us running has been selectman before, but I'll come to the job having spent my entire career working in and with government and on budgets, including here in Lexington's town government. My extensive educational background is a major asset as well. My work is in comparative politics. My research focuses on figuring out what works and what does not, so that governments can make more effective and more efficient, including cost-efficient choices. I hope to apply my knowledge, experience, and know-how to this position and serve our town. I look forward to answering questions during this forum, and I encourage people to check out my website, MatthewCohenforLexington.com. Thank you, and I'm honored to now have been at both of the CALex forums, so thank you.
My name is, my name is Mark Sandine. I'm a father and a husband committed to achieving the goals we all desire, creating a better future for our kids and Lexington residents by building on the strengths of our community. I love big challenges and finding win-win-win solutions for everyone. I believe that working locally with an engaged community is the best way to make a meaningful difference in our world. I love Lexington. We are a diverse and welcoming community. We are committed to excellence in education and fiscal responsibility. But we are at a critical time for Lexington as we contemplate making the biggest investment of a generation, perhaps as much as $300 million or $400 million in our high school and police station. It's a time for experienced leadership. I'm running for selectman because I believe we can achieve our goals of delivering exemplary educational excellence for our students while also maintaining our commitment to fiscal responsibility for our residents and for our local businesses. I am a businessman who's had the privilege of serving on senior management teams while leading some of the highest growth high-tech companies in the U.S. and internationally for both Fortune 500 and startup companies. But most importantly, I have proven experience right here in Lexington delivering innovative solutions that have generated millions of dollars of revenue for the town and are saving Lexington residents money right now while achieving the goals we desire. You may know me as the chair of Sustainable Lexington, or you may have read my column in the Colonial Times, All Things Sustainable. Many of you are aware of the solar energy systems that we put on the rooftops of our schools or out at the landfill, the composting facility out on Hartwell Avenue. Those solar energy systems are generating $600,000 in revenue this year, and we'll be doing that for the next 20 years. Our Community Choice Program, we went out and pulled the buying power of everybody in town together, and that is saving Lexington residents $3 million in the first 2 years of operation while delivering 100% renewable electricity. I'm a can-do and creative person. I have proved that I know how to get things done in Lexington and believe win-win-win solutions are possible with leadership that asks timely and challenging questions. Thank you, and look forward to working with you in the future.
So good afternoon. I want to thank CALex for hosting this event this afternoon and for all of you in coming out and spending time with us to learn not only more about us as candidates, but to, as a community, express your concerns about different things that are happening within the town or maybe coming before the town. My name is Susie Barry, and I'm seeking re-election to the Board of Selectmen to the 3-year term. I was first elected to the board in November of 2014 to a 16-month term. At that time, the then chair moved out of town, so there was a vacant seat. I was re-elected to the board in March of 2016 and elected chairman of the board later that year, a position I still hold. I've been involved in local government for nearly 25 years. I was a town meeting member in Precinct 6 prior to kids. Most people do it after kids or during kids. I did it prior to kids. In fact, I was pregnant with my first kid when I was in town meeting. And I also served as treasurer to the Town Meeting Members Association. I then stepped away from town meeting and got involved in a committee. As many of you know, we have several boards and committees here in town, and you're all welcome to join and contribute expertise to those. I served on the Town Celebrations Committee for nearly 20 years in various roles, vice chair, chair, and so on. I was born and raised in Lexington. I attended the old Estabrook School, Diamond, and graduated from the high school. Married, my husband Mike is a police officer here in town, so if you follow our meetings, our selectmen meetings, you'll see I frequently recuse on issues dealing with contracts or benefits. I do the same at town meetings, so as not to appear as though I have a conflict. We raised our 2 sons here. They attended Estabrook Diamond and graduated from LHS. My oldest son is currently living in Washington, D.C., working for the federal government. He did get paid during the shutdown, which was a good thing. And my youngest son is in his second year of college. What drove me to run again here in Lexington is I truly feel we're at a crossroads, and I don't feel that it's a bad crossroads. I think it's a crossroads where we need your input. We need to hear from you, and we need to come together and listen to each other openly and honestly and communicate that way, and realize that we have some challenges ahead of us, but we need to look at them with balance and try and identify what our needs are and what our wants are as a community and work together through that and move forward as one. So on Monday, March 4th, we vote on Mondays in Lexington. I certainly hope that you will cast a ballot for me, even though we are uncontested. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and I'm Joe Pato. I'm also running for a 3-year seat on the Board of Selectmen, and I'm running for re-election. I want to thank CALex for hosting this. I want to thank you for coming out. Susie and I are both running for uncontested seats, so we appreciate this opportunity and this invitation to be here and hear from you directly, because what's important to me is that we are representatives for what the community is looking for. This isn't my town, it isn't Susie's town, it isn't any one of our towns, it's our collective town. And what makes us great is the sense of volunteerism and engagement, our welcomingness, our openness to include everyone as much as they are interested and willing to do. I've been a resident of Lexington for 22 years, so I consider myself a newcomer. Unlike Susie, I was not born here. I was born in Coimbra, Portugal, but I came to the US when I was very young. A lot of what drives me to stay on the board after serving for 6 years, this would be my 3rd term, is that Susie is right. We are at a time when there are a lot of key issues facing the community as we consider how we want to grow and how we want to address the budgetary implications of that growth. I believe that the best path forward for us is to actively engage the community to find those values that are worth spending money on and preserving for the community. I've served for 6 years. I was chairman for 2 of those years. I have been or am a member of over 16 committees. I'm chair of 2 of them. I was on the appropriation committee. I was a town meeting member. I love being civically engaged. Professionally, I'm a research computer scientist. I have a visiting scientist appointment at MIT, and I worked for Hewlett-Packard for 28 years. So I love data and analysis. Thank you, and I hope you cast one of your votes for me for the 3-year term.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Nancy Corcoran-Manchetti, and thank you so much for welcoming me here this afternoon and all of us. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm running for re-election to the planning board again. If I succeed, it will be my 3rd term on the planning board. I'm interested in Lexington, where it goes, how we can get there, and engaging the community within that process. I have served on a number of committees. I graduated summa cum laude from college. I have a law degree, and I currently work for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I've been a former clerk of the planning board as well as chair. I'm currently clerk, I should say, and I'm a former chair, and I've done a lot with town meeting. I've done community outreach. I'm active in the school with the mock town meeting, student mock town meeting, which I absolutely love, and it's coming up again, and I can't wait to do that. I've been a member of the Lexington 2020 Vision Subcommittee on Demographic Change, and I'm also a former chair and of the Town Meeting Members Association. I thank you very much for inviting all of us here today again, and I think the future of Lexington is important to all of us, and I believe in a balanced and transparent approach to the planning process. And I would be honored to have your vote to allow me to continue to serve our community. Thank you so much for having me.
Good afternoon, and thank you. I'm Robert Peters, and I'm running for a seat on the planning board. And by way of introduction, I've lived in Lexington for the past 15 years, and most of that time I've lived at Drummerboy Homes in Precinct 7. I've served on town meetings both in Burlington and here in Lexington, and I'm currently serving as a member of the Board of Commissioners of the Lexington Housing Authority. And in addition, I've served as the board president of the Drummerboy Homes Association for the past 9 years. Professionally, I'm working as Director of Administration and Finance for a small social service nonprofit in Somerville, and prior to that, I had the privilege of working in the Patrick administration as the Director of Driver Licensing. The Planning Board is arguably the most important board in local government. Decisions made reflect the makeup of the town for the next 2 generations or more. Once you develop a site, you don't get that opportunity back very, very easily. It's a highly technical working committee which needs to be consistent and ready to build consensus with the community and with town meeting for what we collectively want the town to look like. I have a strong commitment to housing, both affordable and at a variety of prices. I think the economic diversity of a variety of housing options is a positive for the community. If we do nothing, we'll have more very large single-family houses with large price tags and a number of single-story strip malls, which aren't particularly interesting, making up our commercial industrial sector. I think we can and we ought to do better than that. My work experience on several boards demonstrates that I have the skills and ability to serve the town well as a member of the planning board. Through my work, I have a track record of quickly grasping the intricacies of highly technical regulations and applying them. As a member of several boards, I've worked hard to build consensus, make the boards run more effectively, and be responsive to constituents and stakeholders. I also listen to constituents and stakeholders. If I'm elected to the planning board, I look forward to working hard to build consensus for Lexington of the future that will make us proud. I hope to earn your vote on Monday, March 4th. My name is Robert Peters.
Thank you so much, all candidates, for your self-introduction.
have a quick question on I'm not very clear, there is selectmen, right? And there is planning board, right? And we have 4 persons running for the selectmen? 4
Oh.
persons are running as a planning board? Or is
yes.
that the case?
Yeah, thank you for bringing it up. So let me clarify that. So we have 2 3-year term selectmen seats, and Susie Barry and Joe Pettle, they are rerunning for that for the 2 seats.
Okay.
And we have a 1-year selectman seat to, and then we have Matt and then we have Mark running for that 1-year selectman seat. And we have 2 planning board candidates running for 1 seat on the planning board.
Great, thank you.
So our next question is about town finance. Before I read the question, I forgot to mention something. So ahead of time, we told each candidate for each question how many minutes they have, and we have a wonderful timekeeper, Wei Hu, and then having been keeping the time. So our second question is 2 minutes. What is your opinion on town budget, spending, tax, and long-term sustainability? For example, what are your thoughts on the Lexington High School potential rebuild? So we'll go in, Bob first.
Thank you for the question. As the parent of 2 Lexington High School graduates, I think I know full well that Lexington High School is long overdue for being replaced. It is not meeting the needs for 21st century education, and we need to do something. At the same time, if you look at what the potential price tag is for renovating or replacing the high school, it is staggering. And absent looking at our commercial industrial base, looking at opportunities for where redevelopment can be encouraged in the commercial industrial sector, where we actually are able to benefit from a relative higher tax rate in those areas, I think we would be remiss in doing that, because without that, then our residential properties will bear all of the costs of the cost of a renovation project at the high school. I think that the technical process the town goes through in budgeting is actually quite sound, but it's really how we develop new revenue opportunities. As I said, I live in Precinct 7. I live in the Hartwell neighborhood. I am not by any means against redevelopment in Hartwell. I think it is a necessity that we look at that area, among others, in town for potential rezoning and encouraging redevelopment there. But we have to do that balancing other interests, which are those of residents and people in the neighborhoods and the potential traffic impact, so that any redevelopment has to be done with an eye towards mitigating the impact on residences who are already there and the impact on traffic in the neighborhoods.
As a member of the planning board, we're currently undergoing a comprehensive plan review. We have the final session in February. It's to have feedback from the community with respect to what it is they want Lexington to be, what their thoughts are. It is a worthwhile process. An awful lot of work has gone into it. There's currently an ad hoc committee, subcommittee on that particular thing. Our final workshop, I believe, is February 25th. I would encourage all citizens who are interested in that process to attend that hearing. I agree with Bob. I think we need to increase the commercial tax base so that we can get more revenue in, but I think the town is fiscally sound. In fact, I know it's fiscally sound as you look at the information that is provided. I think it's well managed. I think that we have an engaged community, and I think that going forward we'll find whatever we have to do or see whatever needs to be done to go forward to make this community continue to be the best that it is right now.
So I agree that Lexington is in a good financial position today. We are well managed, and I have been proud to be part of that management process for the last 6 years and 4 years before that on appropriation. But we have great reserves, we have AAA ratings on our bonds, we're in a good position going forward. but we're also undergoing a lot of growth and stress. So the big issue is, how do we continue to be able to afford what we perceive as needs in the community? And in particular, there is a clear imbalance in our revenue sources. We get about 18% of our revenue from commercial sector at this stage. It used to be over 30% in the early 1980s. And the fact that we're getting 18% is only because we use a split tax rate and are effectively taxing our commercial taxpayers at about twice the rate of residential payers. What we've seen is that the value of commercial properties has stayed flat or declined, while residential properties have grown quickly throughout town, and that's shifted the balance. And as we look forward to large projects that are either providing us with better safety in the center, or more accessibility, or the elephant in the room, a large construction project in the education system like the high school, we have to look at ways of raising revenue that is a more balanced approach to the community as a whole. I do have some positive expectations. Working on the high school in particular, there is an ad hoc master planning committee looking at the full range of needs and spectrum of possibilities for how to address it. Building a new high school is only one possibility. There may be lots of ways of addressing the space and resource issue at that high school. This is a 5 to 10 year process, and we shouldn't make assumptions, but we should be planning for a potentially large investment.
So this past Monday night at the Board of Selectmen meeting, our new town manager, Jim Malloy, presented us with the FY 2020 proposed budget. It's about $221 million. It's a lovely document. It's online at www.lexingtonma.gov. I encourage you all to go online and read it. It's not an easy read. There's a lot of good information in there. That being said, as previous speakers have said, our town is well managed. We are fiscally sound. However, as Mr. Pato said, there is an elephant in the room, and that is, how do we address the need of the high school? The Board of Selectmen meets regularly in summits with the school committee, the appropriation committee, and the capital expenditures committee, and this issue comes up now at every meeting. We look at spreadsheets as to what we think the cost may be. We don't know what the cost is yet. There's a lot of rumors. As Mr. Pato said, this is going to be a long project. And so while we're thrilled that you're here to engage with us today, we need you to continue to engage and be part of this process. And you can do that by going on the town website. You can sign on for email updates when the Board of Selectmen meet, or the school committee, or any of the financial committees, and follow the process. Don't be caught not knowing until the last minute. This is a community endeavor. It's going to take the entire community to rally around this project. That being said, it is something that keeps many a selectman, a school committee member, a town manager, and town staff up at night. This morning was 2:45, and it does run through your head of how are we going to pay for that? Oh, I'm serious. I don't know what time it was for you, but for me it was 2:45. We talked about this. We're like, we could do a meeting at 2 in the morning. But anyway, but seriously, it's part of balance. It's communication. It's something that we do need to increase our commercial tax base. The board is being very active in trying to encourage development on Hartwell Avenue. That too is going to take community investment and community involvement. Sign up, follow those meetings. It's important that we work together as a community for this.
It's a remarkable time to be a Lexington resident. The average value of our homes over the past 10 years has gone from $600,000 to over $1 million. And the town budget has grown about the same rate over that time period, from $135 million to $230 or $220 million. And it's closely tracking the value of our homes. And what you'll see is our property taxes have gone up over that time from about $8,100 for a median home to about $14,000 right now. So there's a lot of people in the room who are concerned about what their property taxes are going to do and where we can go with that. And as Joe mentioned, we need to be committed to fiscal responsibility and educational excellence. And, I'm sorry, Susie mentioned that as well. And we need to be creative about how we're going to raise that money for the high school. And as Joe mentioned, the property tax values have declined over time from about 31 to 17% over the last 30 years. We need to be working with our largest commercial property owners, like I have been doing over the last 3 years, to develop win-win-win solutions about how we can attract higher value commercial property owners to town, like biotech companies that will pay double the tax revenue per square foot of, say, just standard office space, and how we can improve our zoning and how we can let mixed-use space like restaurants and services out on the site and effective transportation solutions. If we're able to do all of those things together, we're going to be able to raise significant revenue. It's going to take a long time, but if we get started now, perhaps when we're ready to go through the debt override and exclusion for the high school, we have a solution. We are making the biggest investment in a generation in our high school, and we should be designing that high school to achieve the objectives we want for our students, which includes health and productivity for our teachers. We've done that. The Board of Selectmen asked me to help with the design of the Hastings School, and we are now delivering a school that is healthier and productive while saving the town $400,000 a year on their operating budget. I'd like you to do the same thing with me on the high school.
I believe it is critical to build a budget that does as much as possible for as little as possible. Our town budgets must ensure that we are providing people with the high-quality services we've all come to know and expect. And this takes money, and Lexington is a high-tax town. And to avoid unnecessary tax burdens, we need to spend our money wisely. I have extensive experience from my years in government doing just that. When I was a budget director, I always asked 3 questions about every budget request. 1, is this expenditure necessary? 2, will the program actually work? And 3, can we do this for less? I would do the same as selectmen. We should generally avoid overrides, and I'm pleased there have been fewer lately, so well done, thank you. But there are circumstances where they will be needed. One of those situations is, of course, very likely for the building of a new high school. I do believe we need to rebuild LHS. It's largely the same as when I went there. So this is deeply important to me, as I'm the only one up here whose children will actually go through a new high school. And I'm also a college professor in my day job, so quality education matters personally to me on every level. And I've worked on these types of projects, and while there are ways to mitigate construction and operating costs, unfortunately they won't come close to offsetting the need for more tax revenue. And the high school will be expensive. We need detailed plans, and proposals and claims regarding costs and savings need to be spelled out clearly so everyone can evaluate how they would actually work. And I want to see sustainability be a central factor in all capital projects, including the high school. Incorporating sustainability measures can save and sometimes make the town money. So new building projects should include systems for things like rainwater collection, solar paneling, efficient HVAC, among others, as much as we can do. But this will not get around those giant upfront costs. I believe we should be setting aside money, or starting now, to start paying for this project well before the final plan is approved. And I think we need more generally a detailed capital comprehensive plan that incorporates every capital project in addition to a more general, broader comprehensive plan. We can plan and budget more effectively if we have those plans.
Thank you, candidates. So now question number 3. What is your opinion on zoning, special permit, and dense residential building? How does that fit in the big picture, such as school overcrowding? And how should the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board work together to ensure healthy development of Lexington for the long term? Could you please use the Grove Street project as an example? So this is a longer question, and each candidate has 3 minutes.
In general, I'm not in favor of dense residential housing units, and no major project should be undertaken without considering the impact of the surrounding neighborhood. We need to listen to residents and work with them. This is something that might have been handled a little better regarding the Grove Street development, but specifically I see dense residential housing units pose 2 central problems. One is that such developments can change the feel and character of the community. In addition, they bring increases in traffic, which is already an issue in town. Both of these factors were part of the concern regarding Grove Street, and they should factor into decisions on development projects of any kind. A related factor to consider is that there are roughly 20,000 people of working age who live in Lexington, and of that, about 5,000 to 6,000 work in town or from their homes. At the same time, there are roughly 20,000 to 25,000 people who work in Lexington, meaning that more people commute here to work then leave town to do their jobs. This has a major impact on traffic and the environment. We can make it possible for people to commute more efficiently to work, but the best answer is probably not larger housing projects in Lexington. In part, it's good local jobs, and in part, it's better public transportation. The second potential problem the town faces in having more housing units is an increase in school enrollment. The amount of money it takes to educate a single child is more than the revenue brought in from the taxes on a single residential property. This is an even larger issue if the family has more than one child. Interestingly though, the main driver of increased school enrollment in Lexington appears to be from people in single-family homes without children leaving town and young families moving in, indicating the problem is in large part about how expensive it is to live here, which is something I want to address if elected. We need to help our older residents afford to stay and live here. We also have to take into consideration that Lexington needs to ensure its affordable housing stock stays above 10% of housing, as we currently are. Otherwise, developers can build large projects without really consulting the town. Among other ways to address these issues, we can thoughtfully increase commercial development. This too must be done very carefully to not damage surrounding neighborhoods or the character of the community. But this type of development can help offset our tax and revenue problems. More people can work closer to home if there are more jobs available. The type of development that brings in the most revenue is lab space, as it commands the highest property values. Lexington has a large number of people who work in fields that would utilize such space, meaning people can work closer to home. And greater commercial revenue would also help cover the costs of providing world-class education to all of our children. In working on these issues with the Planning Board, I see the job of Selectmen as a collaborative effort. While the Board of Selectmen does not have direct control over planning, members can help set overall goals and policies. We can help shape the discussion, the debate, and the decisions. No one can know everything and fix things on their own. We need to have town planning staff to help with these decisions. Lastly, all our policies and decisions should be based in evidence, and none of us is an expert on everything. I want to work closely with the people who have expertise on each of these issues to make sure we're making the best possible decisions. My career is in evidence-based, data-driven policy. It's what I want to do here too.
Thank you for asking a question about healthy development in Lexington for the long haul. I really appreciate that. I've chaired Lexington's Getting to Net Zero Emissions Task Force for the last 3 years. And in that process, I worked with some of the largest commercial property developers and property owners in Lexington, with residential architects, with town staff, to develop a plan to move all of Lexington's buildings to 100% renewable energy over the next 25 years. That means municipal buildings, residential buildings, and commercial buildings. And the Board of Selectmen has approved and adopted that plan last year. Thank you. And I have presented that plan to the Planning Board, and will be presenting that plan to the Historic District Commission next week, with the intent of working with both organizations to develop clear guidelines and standards that will enable us to have a transition to a healthy environment, and will provide clarity for our developers and our residents. One of the things that we see about Grove Street right now is there was a lot of debate in the town about what should happen there. Many residents put a lot of time and energy into making their views known, and there were certain rules and regulations and zones that did not sort of support the outcomes that they were hoping to have accomplished. So what I think we need to be thinking about as a town is developing consensus as a town as to what it is our goals are. Are our goals to maintain and preserve the character of Lexington that so many of us love and desire? Are our goals to have affordable housing? Can we do both of those things at the same time? I think the answer is yes. One of the things that I've been doing over the past 10 years or so in the town is pulling together diverse groups of people, stakeholders from many different aspects, commercial, property, opposing views, and finding ways to reach agreement together on what our goals and objectives are. The role of the Board of Selectmen is not to set zoning policy, that's the Planning Board's job. The goal of the Selectmen, I think, should be to help facilitate conversations about what our goals should be, and then work with the Planning Board to ensure that they are accomplished. I think we need more clarity in terms of our zoning, and it would be helpful for the town as well as for developers coming in to know exactly what it is our goals are. So I do believe it is possible that on Grove Street and other projects like the assisted living facility that was just recently approved at town meeting, the town manager asked that those developers meet with Sustainable Lexington to understand what the zoning is, what the long-term goals of the town are. I believe we can work together to accomplish those things. There's ways of doing zoning that allows for sustainable, healthy, as well as affordable housing. All the types of desires we have as a town could be achieved if we work together as a team. Thank you.
So special permit residential development, or SPRD as we call it on the Board of Selectmen, is part of our zoning bylaw. And when it comes to your neighborhood or next door to you, or you get involved in the cause, as a lot of people did with Grove Street or Robinson Road, when you see huge swaths of trees taken down, when you see developers building on ledge, it is incredibly disturbing, and it should be. 10 to 15 years ago, when people were expanding houses in Lexington, they weren't tearing them down. They were doing what's called popping them up. They were taking the cape and popping it up. They were putting on that full second story. Then, apparently that wasn't big enough, so then they started tearing them down. Now developers are combining lots, or several lots, or finding those pieces of land in town that most people feel are developable, or shouldn't be developed. And then the neighborhood gets engaged, and the neighborhood approaches the town and said, couldn't you please, please, please buy this piece of property? And we would love to buy all the open space in town. However, it comes at an incredibly high price tag. I mean, we would have to meet or exceed what these individual owners can get from the developers. And if we decide to go in that direction, if that were a community decision, it would take that money away from other things. There's only so much money in the pot, and that is a significant challenge. It's difficult, it's hard to come to terms with. In terms of how the Board of Selectmen works with the Planning Board, we have several joint meetings over the course of the year where we talk about issues that are relevant to both of us. The Planning Board are the ones that deal in zoning. We do not deal kind of on their side of the fence with that. And in terms of affordable housing, we get this question a lot, and we've heard it a lot. And really what I think the community needs to do is you need to reflect, and maybe it's semantics or the definition of, how do you define affordable housing? Are you defining it as affordable to you, affordable to someone else, or are we talking about attainable housing? Those are two different definitions. You know, and then it gets to, what is the Lexington we want? Which Ms. Corcoran-Ronchetti spoke about. We're going through the comprehensive plan right now to decide as a community the roadmap for where we want to be in the future. And it all comes back down to communication and involvement. And we all do lead busy lives, whether we live in Lexington or not, or if we have kids or don't have kids. But we need to stay engaged. We need to stay involved if you want to be a part of having a truly vibrant community that you want. There's a lot to be said that we are over 10% of our affordable housing. And people will use that number to scare you and say, we're going to fall under 10%, we're just going to fall off the cliff. It's not going to happen that quickly. But we have done an amazing job, and Lexhab has over 72 units scattered town-wide, from the Muzzy condos to standalone units to accessible units to the units that they're going to build on Lowell Street. And that's something we should celebrate as a community. Should we do more? Yes. Can we do more? Yes, but it's going to come at a cost. And again, it's about shared values. It's unfortunate what happened on Grove Street, but as a community, if we come together, we can work towards changing it.
So I'll try not to revisit some of the same issues. And Susie's absolutely right. The path forward is, how do we as a community come together to understand what we want to preserve and what we want to be going forward. We touched on a few things. The comprehensive plan is a multi-year project. The last time we did one was 15 years ago. We're supposed to do it about every 10 years. We're a little late. This is going to be a 2 to 3 year process, and we're at the end of year 1. So what we are reaching the end of is the first round of community engagement, and then it's going to be more analysis, discussion, and re-engagement with the community. So if you haven't been to any of these meetings, you haven't missed out. You might even miss out, you can watch them on video, but you will be able to go and continue to participate with this as we map out what the future for the community should be and how might we get there. The process really is a process of engagement. There is no single simple answer. The question was, what do we think about dense residential building. Well, it depends. It's part of what we are going to do in different contexts. For example, I think we need more senior housing, more facilities that make living in the community feasible. Many of our seniors want to age in place, and power to them, and we should do everything we can to make that work. At the same time, many seniors want to be able to be in a community where there are integrated services that provide them with easier transition as they age. That doesn't happen in a small apartment or in a single family house. That's the kind of facility that is going to be denser. Where do we do that in town? We just had a project approved, but we have much more demand than the current set of projects are going to be able to accommodate. So I expect over the next decade, we're going to see more of those kind of projects, and the fact that they're dense shouldn't be something we're scared of. We want those kind of things to be in places that are close to retail and restaurants and bus service, in addition to being large enough to have those internal pieces. I also look forward to us improving the diversity of housing so that we have not just very large homes being built or very old homes that are in a poor state of continuing maintenance. To do that is going to require creative cooperation between developers and the community. And we absolutely need to do that as a whole community. And when I say diversity of housing, I would hope to see a variety of price points, because it's not just affordable. And when we have affordable housing, we actually have only a small percentage. Our number is 10%, but the actual units that are truly affordable is less than half of that number. So we need to work on broadening out the range.
I sat through the process with the Grove Street development. The developer came in with a by right project, and then also came in with a special permit project. The board, when we receive a project, it isn't, the board has multiple meetings, spends time, gets input from the community, as well as redesigns, not necessarily redesigns, but makes changes to a project to ensure that what is finally voted on and approved by the board is what, in the board's opinion, is what will make Lexington a greater community, a good community for people to live in and work in. And I think that we take that process, I'm speaking for myself, but I will also say for the other 4 members of the board, we take that process seriously. We are diligent. We do due diligence whenever we're reviewing any project, and we expect and encourage community engagement and involvement with the opinions. When the board takes its vote, it has considered everything that has come before the board, and that's what ended up happening with Grove Street. I think that it was awful to have the trees cut down, but I think in the end, the project, along with some affordable housing, was what the majority of the board decided was in the best interest of Lexington. And I voted in favor of the Grove Street project. And I think that we need more projects that can include affordable housing, but as well as work with the community and engage the community. And I anticipate, or I expect, ask everyone, when you see the agendas to the planning board meetings are posted, and we encourage community engagement and involvement and opinions, whether it's in writing or whether you come to the meeting, to look and let us know what it is you're feeling, what you think might work, and just let the board know, because it's helpful to the board in its deliberative process to know things, especially what the community is thinking and how it impacts them, because that does go into, at least when I'm factoring in, how I plan developing a project. I take into account a lot of different factors, including that one. Thank you.
So I think the planning board actually did as well as it could on Grove Street with the tools that it had. As was said before, if perhaps 25 or 30 years ago the town had had the foresight to establish a land bank where funds were available for purchasing land in the future, that might have been an option that would have been another tool. But it would have necessitated making some choices where what else we could not do, having dedicated the money for that. I support housing. I support housing at a variety of price points. One of the things that we've done on the Housing Authority in the time that I've been on the board is that we've built 4 units which were strictly affordable, so they are counted on the subsidized housing inventory as affordable, which keeps Lexington at or above the 10%. We built 4 units at Greeley Village on Housing Authority-owned property using a combination of resources from the CPA, from Mass Housing, and Housing Authority resources. So that was the first housing that Housing Authority had built since approximately 1980 in Lexington. Additionally, though, we need options where there are housing that provides a variety of price points, because we value diversity in town, but economic diversity is part of that, and I think it is important that we maintain economic diversity. We're not building additional land in town because we're limited in what we have, but we have to work with what we have. If you look at downtown Lexington, I don't think 10 years on that there's anyone who misses the motel that was in Lexington, which was redeveloped into residential housing. And I think that is an example of some of the creative things that we might want to encourage, is where appropriate, building somewhat denser housing, but where people want to live and where some of the amenities that are available, both the shops downtown and access to public transportation, and potentially mixed use, where some of our smaller commercial areas perhaps could sustain redevelopment with a residential component. So I think that we have a lot of options, but we have to do this carefully and deliberately. I think the comprehensive plan is really a great vehicle for gathering input and building consensus in the community, but I think it's important that we take those steps.
Thank you, Kennedy. Now the next question. What are your thoughts on the marijuana dispensary and why?
So I'm going to reserve judgment on the specifics of a marijuana dispensary. I think that the Cannabis Control Commission is doing a reasonably good job in limiting the issuance of licenses and sort of parceling them out over time. I think that a potential entrepreneur who wants to open a cannabis dispensary in Lexington with the right plan in the right location could be something that we would want to consider, so I would not preclude it. I also think that not being first out of the gate is an advantage for any towns, including Lexington, who may have to consider this in the future. That the traffic, the novelty will wear off. Among other things, will wear off. And that as we go forward and it becomes more common and that more licenses have been granted, I think the impact on traffic and other congestion, I think, will be diminished.
No, I would not support a marijuana dispensary here in Lexington at all. I don't think that I just don't support it. I won't say anything else. I would vote no if it came before the planning board. I think that I don't know if there's enough data out there as with the dispensaries that are just opening now and that have been opened. I don't think we have enough empirical data from those dispensaries to understand what impact it does have on the community with respect to traffic, with respect to any other type of impact that a business such as that might bring to the town. So at this point in time, it's an absolute no. I might say I've reserved judgment, but it's still no.
So, a little over a year ago, town meeting had a bylaw brought that banned marijuana dispensaries. So this really isn't a question that's before us. You can't have them in Lexington for recreational use. And I will say that when that ban came forward, I did not vote in favor of the ban because I thought that we should wait to see what the Cannabis Commission's regulations were. But it didn't really matter because there was an overwhelming majority of town meeting, and the community has spoken. The medical marijuana is a little different. By state law, you can't ban it. But 2 years ago, we did zone for medical marijuana dispensaries to be only exclusively in the Hartwell Avenue Business District. As far as I know, there are no landowners there who are interested in putting up one of those facilities, but it is a limited portion of town, and we are not allowed by state law to say that there is no place. I don't see any need for us to revisit these decisions anytime in the near future. So that's my view.
So it's very, very interesting going into this year's annual town meeting because we're reviewing the warrant of articles that are coming. And it's the first time in a while at annual town meeting, it also happened last fall at special town meeting, that we didn't have an article dealing with marijuana. We talked a lot about marijuana at town meeting. And as Joe said, in March of 2017, we restricted medical marijuana to the CM district, which is Hartwell Ave. I will tell you, over the last several years, not recently, people have called and said, where do you allow it in your community? And when they're told, they just go, okay, click. So I'm not sure there's a great interest out there. Last year when we voted for recreational marijuana, I voted against it. And I voted against it because that's what I was hearing from the community, that the community did not want it. Now as you look at the other communities that have adopted it, and you see on TV these lines, and oh, they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars and it's a windfall for the town. And one community is calling their new fire truck their pot truck. And that's wonderful, but it all comes back to sustainability. When they need to replace that fire truck, are they still going to be making what they were making from the marijuana sales? Because by then, there's going to be far more establishments selling. It's not just going to be 1 or 2 or 3 in the state. So that is where I stand on marijuana.
Yes, Lexington voters have spoken on this issue several times, not just at the local elections that Susie and Joe have mentioned, but also at the statewide election, where it was recreational marijuana was legalized. Lexington voters voted against that. That was a very large turnout vote, so we had a very high polling of Lexington residents. It's very clear Lexington residents did not want to legalize marijuana at all. And so then we had much stronger votes at town meeting, something like 74%, I think is the number of what voted against having this. And my perspective as a Lexington selectman, as Susie said, my role is to find out ways to achieve the goals that Lexington residents have. So Lexington residents have spoken very clearly. My role at Lexington would be to find a way to achieve your goals, which are not to have Lexington host recreational marijuana dispensaries at this time. So that's that.
I'll start simply. I oppose opening a marijuana dispensary in our town. While as my previous answer indicated, I do want to see new businesses come here, I believe we can attract better businesses than ones that sell drugs. These dispensaries have just opened in a few towns, and we don't yet know what the impacts will be on those communities, but you know, some problems have already arisen, people taking drugs, more so. I'm not interested in seeing Lexington be a guinea pig. Does not intrigue me. I'm also worried that allowing such a store to open in Lexington will make it even easier for children and teenagers to get their hands on harmful drugs, which, as the father of 2 young children, is of great personal importance to me. And look, I know that local communities can levy taxes on the marijuana sold, which could increase available funds for the town budget, as Selectman Barry pointed out, but even so, the revenue brought to Lexington by this program would be greatly decreased, again, as she noted, when more and more towns open these stores. So This makes the potential dangers all the more consequential. There may be little benefit for the risk taken, if any at all. It's not even clear that there is a clear benefit to the local communities that have allowed such stores, let alone ones that are going to offset the dangers and negative aspects inherent to opening such a store. I just don't want to make it potentially easier for children in our town to obtain drugs. And the voters spoke clearly on this issue. We have to listen to our residents. That's the job in a democracy, is to listen to your residents. Government only works if people reach out and listen. It's the core of why I run. It's the core of what I'm trying to do, is reach out to you, listen to you, hear from you. How could I ignore you? Town meeting got this right when they banned dispensaries in town, and I think we should keep it that way.
Thank you, candidates. Our next question. In light of the DEI initiative, so DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. What do you hope that the Chinese community could help contribute and also make an impact in the town?
Issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion are central to my personal interests and my campaign. Communities and individuals are always better off when we get to know and learn from people of different backgrounds. Before this campaign began, I was active with a number of groups in town trying to work for a more equal and inclusive community. Regarding the schools, I would love to see Mandarin taught starting in elementary school when kids can learn best. It's already one of the most important and valuable languages to know for people engaged in international business or politics, and it's clear its importance is going to continue to grow. I would love to help design and implement programs with the Chinese American community here in town to create a network that would allow this to happen. Now, I was lucky enough to grow up with grandparents who actually traveled to China frequently. My grandfather was actually born in Shanghai, so I heard a lot about Chinese culture and history. And the program that I was just mentioning could include instruction on Chinese culture and history. We should not just be focused on the USA and Europe. In addition, we need to ensure that all students are treated equally in schools. This is unfortunately not currently always the case. Minority students are much more likely to face harsher discipline, and they are much more likely to have expectations placed on them that are unequal or unfair. And I've been working on this issue in town. Outside of the schools, I'm currently working with minority candidates from many backgrounds who are running for town offices. I was honored to be the only candidate to get to attend the CALex meeting in November that was encouraging Chinese American community to run for town office, and I want to continue to help with that effort. This is, to my mind, one of the most important things that CALex does, is get people engaged. We need more representative town government. In addition, when considering any policy proposal that might have a particular impact on minority communities, I'll make it a point to reach out to those communities and discuss the proposed policies so we can address those issues in culturally informed and relevant ways. It's critical to me that elected officials do this so that policies can avoid having unintended negative consequences that will disproportionately harm minority communities. Taking these steps and others will make our town better for everyone.
As a businessman, I had the opportunity to start 5 companies in Asia and in Europe. It was one of the best and most exciting times of my life. And I made friends that are some of the best friends I have today. And I learned new perspectives by listening and hearing what other cultures had to say about how the world ought to operate and work. I've always felt that we make much better decisions when we have a broad input, when we really listen to all the people in the room, all the people in the town, and we have a range of suggestions from a diverse community. 10 years ago here in Lexington, a small group of my friends and I decided that we wanted to form an interfaith garden with volunteers from 14 faith communities and from other communities, non-faith communities in town. Our goal was to grow healthy and healthy food for our good neighbors who might have had difficulty putting food on the table. We have produced something on the order of 14,000 pounds of produce, about 2,000 pounds a year, that gets brought over to the food pantry every Saturday morning. But more importantly, a lot of people think the goal of the garden is to provide food for folks who may be struggling a little bit. But our real goal for forming the Interfaith Garden was to build relationships across diverse cultures in town, diverse religions in town, and to build relationships. And so that's what we have done, and it has been enormously successful. It's a fabulous result, and I look forward to doing the same kind of thing in the future, of finding opportunities to bring people together. I salute CALex for your efforts to encourage Lexington residents and your organizations and other organizations to participate in local committees and town meeting level and run for Board of Selectmen. We need to hear your voices in leadership in this town. Thank you very much.
So the diversity, equity, and inclusion, I believe this refers to a document that the school committee and the school superintendent published this summer. The Board of Selectmen is on the list of reviewers of that document. We have not yet sat down with the superintendent and the school committee to do that, but we will if you're interested in reading that document. It's a wonderful read. I have read it. You can find it on the school department website. That being said, I can tell you what we're doing on the municipal side in terms of when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. In February of 2017, I believe it was, the Board of Selectmen signed an inclusivity proclamation. You can also find this on the town website. The board is committed to welcoming all who live, work, play, do whatever you do in Lexington, regardless of your age, race, religion, beliefs. You are all welcome here. It's a very powerful document. It was written by people in our community with assistance from the Human Rights Commission. It's also on the website. I suggest that you read it. I will say the unfortunate part about that document is, as chairman of the Board of Selectmen, I have had to reiterate that document more than once in one of our meetings in response to something that has occurred within our community. That being said, I can say some of the positive steps we have taken is the town manager, then town manager Carl Valenti, and our former school superintendent, Dr. Mary Chakowski, formed the Diversity Advisory Task Force. It's a group of residents across the span who advise them directly on issues related to their particular ethnicity or group in a work group type of way, trying to get them up to speed. They're currently reading the book, I believe it's called White Privilege, or something like that. This past year, Mr. Powder and I met with various groups in town to have a conversation about demographics and diversity in a retail sense. How can you truly feel welcome in your community if you walk into a store and maybe it doesn't sell your favorite thing? We would like to keep we talk about keeping business local, but wouldn't it be more convenient if you could go to Lexington Center and buy some of the things that you're traveling out of town to get? We need to continue that conversation. The town recently acquired some tablets that we're using in our municipal departments so that we can communicate to people through Google Translate. It's not always the best, but as a means of breaking down that barrier in terms of communicating. And as Mr. Sandin said, it is all about building relationships. The Board of Selectmen and town staff have been very proactive in reaching out and strengthening our relationships with the organizations, with CALex and other groups in town, so that we truly understand each other.
So I'm going to build on where Susie is because we ran over time. I will honestly say that I think the current Board of Selectmen are individually and collectively committed to making the community welcoming. And when Susie enumerated all sorts of people working, playing, etc., it's everybody. It doesn't matter. We believe that humanity is equal and should have equivalent opportunities and access and engagement and commitment to being part of a whole. We are successful, we are a great community because we include everyone and encourage them to participate. So we are not the school system. I can't talk to you about what's happening inside because we are just residents when it comes to how policy evolves in the school department. But I can say they too are very concerned with making progress in resolving issues that may arise where people are feeling that they aren't included or there are some problems. We have begun some programs. We have programs in a variety of departments, and we're working at trying to make sure that everyone in town feels comfortable when they have an interaction with the town government. You asked what could be done by various groups, specifically about Chinese groups, but in general. And what you're doing today is part of that. Hosting a cross-cultural event that allows people to come and see each other, ask questions, understand, and become more of that unified community. We have over 90 committees in town. We are successful because of the volunteerism that is exhibited by our residents. Come out, join those. I can't imagine that there isn't some activity we have in a committee that doesn't appeal to almost every person in this room. If you have some time, come and participate and become part of the active community.
I would just ask everyone here to get involved with the planning board's comprehensive planning process. We have one last meeting at the end of this month. It's a workshop, and I think that that's where you can still give the board input and make your opinion known and your thoughts with respect to the planning process as the town moves forward over the next year, 5 years, 10 years. I would encourage you to do that. I think it's been insightful. I've been involved with the process. I think the board is committed. Obviously, we are looking to see what's best, but we'll go work with Lexington as we move forward over the next 10 years. And we want to hear from the community. We want to know your thoughts. We want to have a discussion. We want your opinion with respect to everything that planning gets involved with. It's not just a subdivision. It's not just only, I should say, a subdivision or a whatever we might do with respect to Hartwell Avenue zoning. But I think that the board encourages input and would appreciate anything that the community as a whole would like it to consider with respect to this comprehensive plan review, and to let us know about it. Thank you.
So I think we are fortunate to live in a community that is as welcoming as Lexington. However, I think that we still have work to do. The planning board's comprehensive plan session that I attended, someone said that not everyone feels welcome in our welcoming community. So I think that we really need to think about what that means and what we can do to work harder to make people feel more welcome in our community. And I think it's something that we all have to take into account. I thank CALex for having this meeting tonight. I think that it's really important for people to be asked, and that's part of how inclusion is built, is ask your neighbors. I have served, as I mentioned earlier, as the board president at Drummerboy Homes for the past 9 years. And we have a board that represents approximately, well, exactly 10% of unit owners are represented on the board. And in board recruitment, as the demographics of the property has changed, I've made it a point to ask new people who are moving in to join the board. And through that effort, I think we've had some success. Not everyone says yes, but everyone likes to be asked. And through that effort, we have currently 2 Asian residents who are serving on the board at Drummerboy. It really is, inclusion is reaching out and making the first step and asking.
Thank you, candidates. So now comes to our last prepared questions. So this is an opportunity for the candidate to make a closing statement. For the voters who are still deciding, what are the opportunities for them to learn more about you? For those who have already decided, how can they help with your upcoming election?
Thank you, and thank you, CALex, and thank you, Ali and Husi, for hosting the forum this afternoon. Thank you to the other candidates. I think we live in truly a special community. Building consensus, developing the vision for what we want Lexington to look like tomorrow and into the future, I think is really critically important work. I believe I bring to this campaign a track record of building consensus, bringing people together, and listening to stakeholders, listening to constituents as we build and plan for Lexington for the future. I'm Robert Peters. I would be honored to have your support and vote on March 4th for the Lexington Planning Board. Feel free to reach out to me if any issues that we didn't cover this afternoon or that we covered and you'd like to continue the conversation on. With your votes, I'd be able to bring these skills and my experience to the planning board. Together, we'll build the Lexington that we want. Reach out by email. My email is rdpeters@rcn.com.
I'll wrap up the way I began. The future of Lexington is important to all of us. I believe in a balanced and transparent managed planning process, and I would be honored to have your vote to allow me to continue to serve our community. I've spent 6 years on the planning board. I believe the board has been a good steward with respect to the town and the development and the projects that it has reviewed and voted to approve. I am honored that you asked all of us here today for this meeting, and I thank you. And I respectfully ask for your vote on Monday, March 4th, 2019. Thank you again.
Thank you. And I'm Joe Pato, and I'm on the ballot for the 3-year term of 2 seats of 3 years. And I hope you will vote for me this coming March. And I hope everyone goes out and votes. There are a lot of candidates running, especially for town meeting seats. This is a year where we have a lot of creative candidates and a lot of contested elections. So I hope we'll get a good turnout, unlike we generally do at these town elections. My primary goals are to make sure that we advance our economic development and that we're fiscally responsible. I've worked on that for my entire career on the town's elected positions. And I'm really keen to make sure we are moving our sustainable action plan and our getting to net zero plan over the next 5 years to make tangible, credible progress in those areas. I would be happy to have people contact me. I'm sitting in an uncontested seat, but I really take these opportunities to hear more about what residents are concerned with when they're not angry about a single issue. I hold office hours at the town office building on Wednesdays from 10 to 11 and here in the community center from 2 to 3 year round. And I am available through my website, joepato.org. I'm also hosting all sorts of coffees during this election period so that I can hear from you and we can have a better dialogue. Thank you.
So I want to thank CALex for hosting this afternoon, and most importantly, I want to thank you for coming out and hearing what we had to say. But it doesn't end here. My challenge to you is to get involved, not only on Monday, March 4th, when you can go and vote and you have some choices, but moving forward. And whether that involvement is you get involved, whether you're running for town meeting now, you run for town meeting in the future, you get involved on a board of committee, or you simply sit down at your laptop some night or your iPad and you send us an email about something that's bothering you, or some kind of question or concern you have in your neighborhood or in our community. As Joe said, the Board of Selectmen, we want to hear from you. All 4 of us, because we're not 5 right now, we hold office hours. They're posted on the website. Joe's on Wednesday, I'm on Thursday, Jill's on Thursday, Doug's on Tuesday. We want to hear from you. We want to be an engaged community. We have a lot on our plate, but we always do. We have a lot coming up. You see this overachieving thing? It's not just the schools. And so we need to work with you and we need to hear from you. We can't be making these decisions in a bubble, and we don't intend to. We want to be transparent, okay? Something to remember, and I believe as Tip O'Neill said, all politics are local. Think about federal government, okay? Do they listen to you? You might yell at your TV about them. State government, maybe not. All politics are local. It starts local. Your trash pickup is local. You turn on the faucet in the morning to take your shower, water, local. Schools, local. This is where it happens. This is where the rubber hits the road. Get involved, get informed, tell your neighbors, and keep coming out to forums like this. And on Monday, March 4th, you have choices, and I certainly hope while we are uncontested, you will fill in one of those little bubbles for me, because Mickey Mouse does run a pretty good write-in campaign, and I truly would like to go back and serve 3 more years. Thank you.
My name is Mark Sandine. I've lived in Lexington for 35 years. And my wife Lisa and I have raised our children here. They benefited tremendously from the fabulous schools here in Lexington, from preschool all the way through LHS. I teach several science classes a year at Diamond, and I have judged many science fairs at the high school. I'm a data-driven person, but I'm motivated by the heart. I'm running because I'm committed to achieving the goals that we have as a town for both fiscal responsibility and educational excellence, preserving Lexington's character while building community relationships, supporting diversity while ensuring that Lexington can be a welcoming community for everyone, and creating, we haven't talked about this so much, creating effective transportation solutions. It would be nice if we could drive around without sitting stopped. I believe we can create effective solutions for all of these things that revitalize the desirability and property values of our commercial zones that will help reduce our property taxes, our residential property taxes. All these goals are interrelated. We need to make significant progress on each one of them if we want to have the future we desire. I am the candidate for Selectmen who has proven track record in delivering the projects that have generated millions of dollars in revenue for the town right now, implementing community-wide programs that are currently saving Lexington residents millions of dollars. As chair of Sustainable Lexington, I focused on energy for the past 10 years, but what I'm looking forward to doing is helping the town at a broader level design healthier schools and larger opportunities like the welcoming community and diversity that we've talked about. I know the town. The projects I've worked on have helped make Lexington a better place and generated millions of dollars in revenue. I know we can achieve our goals together and make this a better Lexington, more welcoming and inclusive, respecting the diversity of cultures that make us all stronger together. My name's Mark Sandine. If you're interested in these kinds of solutions, I'd love to work with you and have your vote on March 4th for Selectmen. Thank you very much.
So I've lived in Lexington 37 years, and I have 3 generations of family currently living in town, and for years had 4. I spent the last year knocking on roughly 10,000 doors, including many of yours, and I'm knocking on more. I've served on and met with Lexington committees. I understand the needs of our residents from first-hand experience and from working hard to get to know the different people and groups in town. But I have not only seen and heard what is needed, I have a vision on how to move forward. I believe it's time to balance existing ways with new ideas and new ways of doing things. We need all our citizens to be represented. If elected, I will focus on enhancing diversity and making sure that everyone in town feels welcome and engaged here. I will keep reaching out to groups across the ideological spectrum, to cultural and ethnic groups, to parents of children at all levels of ability, to all businesses and interest groups. I will do this to ensure I have a clear understanding of what people in town need, and to ensure everyone feels they are heard and represented. I cannot do this, though, without your vote. I will focus, too, on ensuring that we maintain our outstanding educational system. I have children just starting out, so this is not just a policy question for me. I am personally invested in this. My time in government showed me the importance of long-term planning and thinking. We need a long-term plan and vision for this town, and we need to spend our tax dollars wisely. I am the candidate with an extensive background working on governmental budgets and making them work. I have researched and formulated ideas on the pressing issues this town faces, not just 1 or 2. You can find them on my website, Matthew Cohen for Lexington, number 4, lexington.com. But I know from my time in government, including here in Lexington, that the most important attributes you can bring to this job are flexibility and a desire to work with other people. If you're interested in this campaign, I hope you'll join me. You can join on the website, learn more. There's a table over there. You have sign-ups, things as simple as being an endorser make a big difference. And in the end, I believe strongly in evidence-based and data-driven policy making. It's what I'm trained to do and it's what I teach. I want to put that training to use for Lexington. I promise to keep listening and to keep working hard, and I ask for your vote on Monday, March 4th. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the candidates. Let's give them a big round of applause. Before opening up for the floor for people to ask questions, I would like to mention that there are other candidates in the audience who are running for various positions in the upcoming election. We have Ivan J. rerunning for the school committee, uncontested. CALex is participating in an event after the town election for the community to have a dialogue with Eileen. Thank you. And we also have a number of people in the audience who are currently serving as TMMs or running for the TMMs. May I ask them to stand up, please? Stay up. So if we could go around the room and ask you to introduce yourself, say your name, your precinct, whether you are a current TMM or you're running this year.
John Zhao, Precinct 5, and please vote for me in Precinct 5.
Okay. I'm running for TMM for Person 8. This is my first time running, and I hope I can get your vote on March 4th. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Betty Gao. I'm running for town meeting member first time in Precinct 8.
Oh, hi, my name is Lynn Jensen. I ran last year, and thank you for those of you who have voted for me. I'm very happy to serve. I'm Precinct 8.
Hi, Marion Cohen. I've been in town meetings since 1994 or something like that. Way back before I can remember. I love serving in town. I support all the efforts that you guys are engaged in here, and I hope that many of you who are standing here will be fortunate enough to be elected and will serve with those of us who proudly serve the town. Thank you.
And her father was born in Shanghai.
Proud mom.
Oh, I'm Lin Shu. I'm running for the Princess 5 too. This is my first time. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Teresa Wright, and I'm on town meeting representing Precinct 8. This is actually my first time running. I was elected by 2 write-ins, to my surprise, last election. But this year, I'm hoping that I can more than double my votes by voting for myself. And I hope that I'll earn your vote. I became interested in running for town meeting because I've been organizing the neighbors in regard to the proposed development at 186 Bedford. So if you have any questions about that, please come and contact me after the meeting. Thank you.
My name is Melanie Thompson. I've lived in Lexington for over 30 years, and this is the first time I'm running for town meeting, and I'm in Precinct 5, which probably, I think, the people who are here. So I know it'll be tough, but I have a little pamphlet here that you can take and have a look at, and I hope to get your vote. Thank you.
My name is Lydia. I'm a current council member from Precinct 5. I'm so impressed that so many people showed up, and I'm very happy that people are really willing to serve our community. This is awesome. Thank you.
Well, Lily is also a member of the appropriation committee. Thank you all for the current town meeting members and upcoming town meeting members. Now let's get a few questions from the audience. And our candidates, please feel free if you want to chime in, or if you don't have anything to say, please feel free to stay up.
One question, I guess, to any one of the candidates. We have a lot of constructions around the town, and which means people really want to move in the town. There are some concerns that I heard as I canvassing around my neighborhood, is that because there are so many constructions, there's concerns that issues or disputes come up that may overwhelm our town and planning board or other, for example, and the zoning board appeal. Is there something that we could do, and as the elected office here, to one is communicate how the process, and as well as to address some concerns, true concerns, the neighborhood come up because certain violations based on the builder's design. So again, and how can we communicate it better, or is there anything we could do, and to make not only and have those constructions and successfully done, but also address our neighbors' concern.
Sorry, should planning board start? I'm happy to start.
So John, great question. I think what you're getting at is with a lot of construction going on in town, sometimes neighbors may have a concern or there might actually be an issue, or how does the enforcement work? Is the enforcement component of the town being overwhelmed by complaints and things like that? And how would people understand the process of if they wanted to make a complaint? This all comes down to our land use department at Town Hall, which is located on the ground floor. The building commissioner, the inspectors, the zoning board of appeals, the appeal officer, and all that. What we need to do, and I'm going to be totally honest with you here, when we talk about wanting to communicate with the community, it is very challenging in this town to figure out how to do something, or how to fix something, or how to make a complaint. And that is something that our new town manager, Mr. Jim Lloyd, is very committed to fixing, is upgrading our website to make it easier to find things. We did just hire a new public information officer, it was in the budget. Sean Dugan started 2 weeks ago, and he's housed in the town manager's office, and so we're hoping over the next few weeks that the community will be seeing more push out from town government of how to do these things. In terms of overwhelming the department or the zoning enforcement officer, we at our level haven't heard anything like that. There's procedures in how you file if you have a concern about an appeal with the zoning board of appeals. I'm not familiar with exactly how that process works, but I know that the staff that works in the office on the ground floor of Town Hall could get you that information if it's something you need. But I will make the commitment that the town website is going to be getting better soon. I'm not going to say how soon. I don't know if anybody else can put it up on that.
Yeah, real soon the announcement of the PIO will be on the website. It's not there yet. So that'll be one of the keys to say, okay, it's beginning to make a change. I just want to reiterate that if you have something going on near you and you're uncomfortable, you're not sure if it's following the procedures, do not hesitate to call Town Hall. Even if you call the central number, you'll get directed into the building department or the appropriate agency to cope with it. A few appeals do have limited time when you can take action. So if it's bothering you, don't wait. Town staff is very happy to engage with residents and make sure you get the necessary information. And we are encouraging the town manager to make sure that it's easier for you to navigate and find that kind of information electronically without having to call necessarily. But for now, if you can't find it, call.
Oh, either way. So it is a good question. I think selectmen can weigh in on some of these issues. I agree much of that is planning board question, but I think the communication aspect is absolutely critical. I sent something, the town survey that was just recently done, really focused on, was pointing out that residents don't feel that they get much communication from the town. And I think that's true. I admit there are processes here that were even I don't know all those processes, and I've lived here 37 years. So we need to do a better job getting that information out to people. To my mind, things like a yearly mailing, saying to people, here's the contacts. If you have certain problems, here's who you reach out to. I remember getting an increase in a tax bill one year that was far greater than I was expecting. I had to contact the town. It took me 3 phone calls to get the information I was looking for, and that shouldn't be. And so, be it, by the way, it doesn't have to be yearly, perhaps just to new residents, but some clear information from the town that lets people know what those steps should be, because communication between government and citizens is the whole point. You can't do your job in government if you don't hear from citizens, and citizens can't tell you what they think if they can't contact you. So it's critical that we make that easy. So I'm glad we're taking steps in that direction. I think that's an important thing, but there's more we can do.
I would agree as we move into the modern age, when we talk about communication, Susie's absolutely right. We need to be working on better ways to communicate to the folks in town, but I would suggest also we need to be working on better ways for the town folks to communicate directly to us. And there are lots of ways that that can happen. We could have something on our phone where we could take a picture of a problem that we've seen and get that right to the right appropriate person. These types of things are possible in the world today, and I'd like to see us sort of move to that level where we're able to have an interactive conversation. We don't have to call and leave a voicemail in order to report a problem and then wait for that response. We might be able to get something where we can report a problem on our phone and then get a tracking number directly. So things along that lines.
I just say the planning board staff, Ms. Kowalski and the rest of the planning board staff, always willing to help answer questions. They're located on the lower level, the town office building. I would encourage you to just stop in if you have any questions, concerns, or just to see what's percolating. It's a very, as I said, engaged staff, and they're always willing to help.
Thank you. I think that it's true. Town staff does a great job and is more than willing to assist folks. I think it really is the communication in the other direction and having people who feel comfortable enough to actually make the outreach to staff. It's both the comfort level and spending the time. So I think it's great, really, that the website is going to be updated so that it is more user-friendly. But I think people need to develop being comfortable enough to make that outreach if they have issues. So I hope that people will feel that way.
Thank you. Any other questions? Lady?
Oh, hi. I have a question on zoning bylaws. Do you guys see a possibility that in the near future that there will be articles or revision of current bylaws on dense development, either planned development or special permit, residential development? Because right now, I don't know if you see the overwhelming requests from developers asking to build different things with more units than single family in our town, which is a great thing. But I feel the current zoning bylaws are not clear enough to have certain criteria that we can all follow. So that brings out all the neighborhoods to have to gather together and debate night after night. And the developers are not having the criteria they can follow. And I just think this is something that could be a possibility that we can work on. And in the last 2 years, there were citizens articles brought in the town meeting. They were turned down in different ways. I don't remember the technical term. They were not voted on, but they were sent to different committees to be considered. So what is progress on that? So is there any revision of zoning bylaws in the work? Thank you.
I have a microphone, so I guess I will start. Not currently being a member of town meeting, ultimately the bylaw is under the purview of town meeting. The planning board has a huge role in doing the education and developing any changes or amendments to the bylaw. And these are not written in stone, and I think that certainly what's come out of the last couple of town meetings and what the pressure points in town are, it's such that it is well past time when the planning board does need to revisit the bylaw. I think that being said, we talked about town staff. The turnover in the planning office has been such that when we have a full complement of planning staff and are in regular positions, I think it will make it much easier to execute that kind of review.
Building on what Bob said, I believe the planning board staff is probably at its full capacity right now. I think we just have the last person who was hired in place. I think that, again, I've said it earlier at least twice, probably 3 times, get involved with the comprehensive planning process. It's a way for people to, we're taking information, ideas. There's one more meeting in February, and we encourage everyone to come. Give us your ideas if you want it in writing, what it is you think is you'd like to see in the planning process, what it is that can change. I really do think It's the last of the 3 sessions. We've gathered information already from the other 2 sessions, and I really would encourage everyone to get involved, because that's how planning can get changed. That's how we know what the community is thinking about, what they would like to see, and we can move forward with possibly making some amendments to the bylaw, changing the bylaws, but I really do think that it's important for people to engage with the planning board through this comprehensive plan. So please send your statements or go online, send a comment. It would be really appreciated.
So directly answering your question, there is a special permanent residential district committee ad hoc committee that was formed. It is there is Jill Hay from the Board of Selectmen and Richard Canali from the Planning Board, and then a collection of citizens who are participating. They're meeting this coming Thursday at 7 or 7:30 p.m. It'll be on the town calendar. It's in one of the rooms in Cary Hall, so the town office building complex, not the library. And they are working on refining those denser definitions of what should the special permit residential districts look like. It will not be a town meeting this year. It's not ready for that, but I expect it will be brought through the planning board sometime in the near future.
Just to give you a little bit more information about that committee, it was an ad hoc committee formed by the Board of Selectmen as a result of the action coming out of town meeting. It was referred back to the Board of Selectmen. As Joe mentioned, Jill from the Selectmen and Richard from the Planning Board are on that committee. It also includes one of the article proponents of one of the articles that was not successful. I believe it has a real estate attorney, some real estate agents, a developer, a local developer on that committee as well. We had our update this past Monday night from Ms. Hay. If you go to Lex Media and watch it on demand, it's towards the end of the meeting. It was a very brief update of where they are and where they're going. The wonderful part about this committee is we made a very conscious effort that this committee is being facilitated. There is no one person in that group that is the chair, because we know this is a very difficult, potentially contentious issue. Zoning bylaws are not easy. Maybe at 2 or 3 in the morning when I wake up and I can't sleep, I should start reading the zoning bylaw. But it is a work in progress. We truly hope to have been further down the path than we are. But I think the end product that you're going to see is going to be a good, solid product. I believe this Thursday, I spoke with Ms. Hay yesterday, they do have a guest speaker coming in, and Lex Media will be taping it. So certainly tune into that, and I think Lex Media may have taped previous meetings, so if you go on the Lex Media website under On Demand, you might be able to find these meetings. They are all posted, as we have to post all our open meetings on the town website, on the public meeting calendar. So check there for their exact agenda, which should be being posted probably on Monday.
As part of our Getting to Net Zero Emissions Task Force, we have some nationally recognized experts in Lexington, surprise, surprise, who were on that committee, and they were making us aware that there's a thing called form-based zoning. The idea is that you don't just look at one thing at a time, you look at an integrated whole. And one of the things that I would hope that is happening through this ad hoc committee that we're talking about is that Lexington's goals for development in town are sort of visioned as an integrated whole. How many affordable units do we want as a percentage? What kind of transportation solutions would we like to see? What type of development would we like to see? Whether it's mixed use, whether it's services. And what you'll see is that these nationally recognized experts say they will point to other areas around the country where this form-based zoning has been done, where you can say, this is the desire of what we want this thing to look like. And we think by holding all these things together at once, you can accomplish what you want, as opposed to just looking at how many square feet or how much the height or separately. So that would be what I would encourage us to do, is have the conversation. And finally, to Lynn's point, we need clarity in our laws and our bylaws so that it is clear for both. I think it will help a lot for both residents as well as for commercial developers to know going in exactly what they need to achieve to do a development.
These are good points. I would largely agree with most of what's been said. You know, I think to echo actually some of what this gentleman here was having to say and what Nancy was having to say, you know, I think it's important that we really focus on this long-term vision. What do we want this town to be? And we need to be taking into consideration, how do we make the town, you know, affordable for people to stay? We need to be looking at zoning questions, including in these types of sort of denser projects. What will that mean for affordable housing? What will that mean for seniors who are looking for a place to leave, whether they want to leave their single-family homes and go stay in town? We need to provide that kind of opportunity. And zoning laws can be very hard to change. It's the 2/3 vote in town meeting to do so. But it can be worth that effort. We need that greater clarity on exactly what it means to have dense housing and exactly what that means for the future. What does that provide us in terms of our options? And it's a critical step to be taking on those steps. So I'm glad to hear there is this ad hoc committee. This is important. I think that's a good thing that we're working on this, and I would be fully supportive of that. We need to think much broader about all these issues.
I just want to add one thing. So this is an ad hoc committee. This is not a go on forever committee. They have a sunset. They have very specific targets they need to hit. Again, if you go to the town website, go into boards and committees, their charge should be listed there. And one of the things they have to do is they have to report to our board once a month. So we just had their report for January. The February report, I'm going to guess, would be later in February, maybe February 25th meeting, I'm guessing. So you can find more information there.
Thank you. I was asked recently, are the minutes of these meetings posted, or is it just they have to get the information from Lex Media?
So they are taking minutes, and I would assume once they are approved, they would be posted to the website. There's a kind of a time delay there.
Oh, okay.
You have to approve minutes within 3 meetings, which means it can be a couple of months before they go up on the website. The video is put up by Lex Media relatively quickly, normally within a few days.
We have time for one more question. Maple?
I'm talking about my pet peeves again. I went to the Lexington Academy, and about 9 weeks, in each department last year, we do not have people of minority being hired, and you guys are supposed to be the mayor of Lexington. You guys have anything to say about hiring in Lexington? I don't want to come to another meeting like this and ask the same question again. We are so close to all these best universities around here in Boston, and it's just hard for me to see that we do not have people that you can hire, or minorities that can come to Lexington and work for us. And I'm talking about also the school teacher. I know, Eileen, you're the school committee. Can we have more minorities teachers that be more inclusive? And I've been to the meetings in town. I saw you once, Susie, in one of the meetings, ABCL. And Matt has come for the last 2 years to our meetings. So that's why I'm wearing Matt's button. But the other one is all talk and no action.
Mine's on there too.
You're supposed to ask me for your endorsement. I didn't get it. I'm waiting for your email.
Anyway, you already did that, but you did get the email and you did endorse me. But anyway, so to answer your question about diversity and hiring I can only speak to the municipal side. Eileen would have to address the school side. I will say, well, it appears as though we are not making great strides. We are. Within our police department, we have a Chinese officer, we have a Cambodian officer, we have a Russian officer, we have several women. Within town hall, we have several Chinese employees. And also at the police department, we have African American.
Fire department.
Fire department, we have a woman. Fire department is much more difficult to hire. They have to come in with a paramedic license, and that's harder to find. In the library, we have a significant amount of diversity there. I always call the library is one of my favorite places to go in town. It's our crown jewel. They're approximately 2 years ahead of what every other department is going to deal with in terms of their diversity, their being on top of things. Their website is separate, so it's amazing. But the town is addressing the issue. The manner in which the town recruits and where we send our open jobs is changing. They are sending them out to groups, the ethnic groups in town. They are sending them to different types of websites that they have been informed by groups of where to post these jobs. So we are slowly seeing a change.
What about the universities that we have close by?
So I believe they're sending out there as well. I can check with Ann Costas, our HR director, and send you an email and let you know. But it takes time. I will say, it also there aren't a lot of people that are interested in coming to work in municipal government at certain levels. We've had an opening in the Board of Selectmen's office now for 3 months that has been incredibly hard to fill. This is a very expensive area to live in, so people are looking for a certain level of pay, and the town pays well, but we don't pay as well as other places in the private sector. And for a certain level of experience we're looking for, and kids nowadays aren't necessarily going to college and coming out and saying, I want to go work for my hometown. They're just not. I mean, that's the reality of it. It's difficult. I will say we have come a bit. We have much further to go. I will say that. But Mabel, you were there the night that we did the town manager interviews and you heard the results of who was in the pile. It was a diverse group. At the end of the day, yes, it was 3 Caucasian men. I will say to you today, look at what's up here. I'm the only woman. Nancy, Nancy, no, I mean, the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen. This is not representative of our town. It isn't. It really isn't, and it bothers me. It bothers me. So you can all sleep on that at 2 in the morning when you kids sleep. You should think about running.
So when I was first promoted into a management position, I hired half of all of the workers that worked for me were women. And I paid them all exactly the same amount as the men made. So this was 1983, I think, about the time I moved to Lexington. And so I am absolutely, totally committed to supporting diversity. The way that our organization ran, because we had equal amounts of women in our organization, we were for 3 years the #1 fastest growing organization at Intel, which was one of the fastest growing organizations in the country. And that was because we had diversity of opinion, and I value that greatly. And I want to work to make that happen in the town of Lexington as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mabel, for the shout-out. I appreciate it. But, no, my pleasure. Yeah, this is a core reason why I'm running. It's one of the main things that I want to do here. And you know, my campaign staff last time around was 100% minority. It was women, and it was members of ABCL, members of the Chinese American community. That was my entire staff. There was actually no white men on my staff. This time around, I have 1. So I guess I'm actually more diverse now with that, but than I was last time. But you know, I think it's important we have all kinds of diversity, including on the board of selectmen. You know, I think I bring a different perspective in that regard, sort of a different position in life, sort of the people with young children, different age, different ideas. So I think it's important we bring that too. But I think there is more we can do in town, and I think we are taking good steps to make sure that we have sort of new minorities hired into these positions. You know, with the Super Bowl coming up, we can even think of things like the NFL's Rooney Rule, you know, where we have you have to interview minority candidates for different positions. And so, you know, wouldn't work perfectly in a town government, but something akin to that, where we make sure that everyone has at least the opportunity to interview for these jobs, because it will lead to more hires. Because it's one of the great ways to fight sort of that systemic racism and sort of the issues that exist within our society and within Lexington. We try hard in Lexington, but we still have work to do. And the fact that our town government and the fact that our town employees do not look like our town is disturbing. So I've been very happy to work with CALex, with ABCL, with all these types of groups on trying to fix that. And I thank CALex for all the work you do to try to get the Chinese American community engaged. We can solve that the more people are engaged, and it's part of why I'm running, is I want to be a part of that effort. So I always want to help. So feel free to reach out anytime. This is what I'm here for. So thank you.
So I'll speak to my experience as a board member of the Lexington Housing Authority. In the last 5 years, we've hired a new executive director, and from the pool of applicants, we selected a female who was actually a graduate of Lexington High School as the executive director. And in that pool of applicants, I don't recall there being any minority candidates for the position. So I think that's one of the issues is that people need to be in the pipeline in order to be considered. For a small staff, there are no more than 9 FTEs in the Housing Authority. In the last position that the executive director posted, and we are not responsible for any positions really other than the executive director, the board did make it a requirement that one of the requirements of the position was competent speaking Mandarin. And I haven't met the person hired, but I was assured that it was somebody who had some competency speaking Mandarin.
You have something to say? We will. Well, this is actually a perfect segue. I would like to invite Eileen to say a few words. Would you like to?
Just in general?
Just in general. I mean, just in general.
I want to say thank you to all these people here who were on the hot seat to answer the questions. I got off the hook this time because the school committee race is not contested. And we wanted to devote, I was actually asked if we should be here, and I said, no, let's devote all the time to so you can hear from the people who are in more contested races. Besides, I'm sure with a lot of interest in the schools, we could have easily taken this entire time on the schools. So in lieu of that, as Helen said, I have offered to come back at another date, probably after the election, to have, we've talked a lot today about, people have talked a lot about communication. And I think the communication needs to be two-way. So I think if CALex is willing to set up a time, I'd be glad to come back and have that two-way discussion around all the kinds of things that are happening. I'd be happy to share some things that the school district is doing around many of the things that have been talked about today, including diversity, equity, and inclusion, which we are really, it's a very big focus of what we're doing going forward. I know there will be questions around the high school and the buildings and our increasing enrollment. In addition, we're going to be doing some educational visioning to work on setting some priorities for the school district, and the community will be invited to participate and have input in that process, because I think we feel like it's really time for us to define what we are about, what our school system, what we want from our school system, and we will be encouraging people from the community to let us know what they want from the school system. So that gives us a way of making a good strategic plan going forward of what we prioritize as we work on the schools. So thank you to CALex for hosting this, and I look forward to coming back and having some of those discussions, because it doesn't end with these kinds of forums. It's a constant back and forth, and people have talked about engagement. Well, that's the way. Come to us. Tell us what's on your mind. We'll do as much as we can also to share back to all of you. This is something I wanted, ever since I got elected, I said, I'm going to have a sit down with the Chinese American community, and I hope this can finally happen. So thank you.
Thank you, Eileen, and thank you for the thoughtful questions of the audience and the thoughtful answers, equally thoughtful answers from the candidates. I know there are more questions from the audience, and our time is running out for this segment, but the candidates will be here till 4 o'clock, so please feel free to approach them after that. And at this point, I just wanted to thank you all for coming and give ourselves a big round of applause.
Yes, by the sign.